Hi and welcome back to another video with the Yamaha Y ZF. It's going to be a great video today. We've got the engine back in. I've put the new radiator on which has been delivered, so everything's wired up and everything should be good to go. So we can restart the engine, check how sweet it sounds and move on to the paint job and making it look awesome. Right, let's give it a go. Three, two, one. Right, got a little problem, not starting. I can smell petrol. Let's give it another go. Bit of gas, maybe there's no gas in the system yet. Seems like we're getting a bit of blowback. That's something for us to look at. Instead of today's video about getting it all up and running, I think what we're going to do is we're going to go through all the steps necessary to figure out why an engine won't start. Okay. So what happens is, there's multiple reasons why an engine's not going to start. But most simply, a 4-stroke engine, such as the one in the Yamaha, has to do 4 different things each time the piston rotates. It's got to suck, squeeze, bang, blow. Okay, it's got to suck in some fuel and some air, it's got to compress that, and then it's got to explode it, and then it's got to exhaust it. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. Easy way to remember it. So because the engine won't start, we need to figure out which of those 4 things is not happening properly. So we'll start with some very simple things to check, and we'll move through them as they get a bit more difficult, and hopefully one of them will get the engine running in this video. There's a few things I know that's already wrong with it. We've got a problem where the exhaust header is not fitting on properly. It looks like the header bolt has actually snapped off, so I can't get it on right. So that could mean that we get too much air back into the system, which could have a too lean mixture on the petrol, and that could be why it's not igniting. Also, the petrol that's currently in the tank is what came with the bike. I've no idea how long it was sitting there before I bought it, but I know I've had it for nearly 3 months already, and petrol does start to deteriorate after about 2.5–3 months. So a very easy thing for us to check is to get the old petrol out, put some fresh petrol in and see if that sorts it out. Also, a very common problem for an engine not starting could be the battery. So the battery could not be given enough power. We heard the starter motor tone over, but maybe it's not got enough power to actually start it. We'll get on with the multimeter, we'll check the voltage on the battery and we'll make sure that that's okay. Now I have had it on charge overnight, so I know the battery is full, but we'll go and check it anyway just to make sure. After that, we can check all the fuses are okay. I'm pretty sure they are because the bike did start when I first got it, and I don't see any reason why any fuses should have blown, but it's a simple thing to check, so we'll do that next. Another possible problem could be the air filter. So if the air filter is too clogged up, maybe it's not getting enough air in and the mixture's running too rich. If that's the case, then replacing the air filter could work. Now, there is already a brand new air filter in there, so I'm pretty sure that's not the problem. So that's all around the suck. So we're sucking air and fuel into the engine. Squeeze, we need to check the compression as well. I'm not sure if I've got a compression tester, so we may not be able to do that. I think another easy thing for us to test is the spark plug. Now it is a brand new spark plug in there, but it could have got knocked or it could have got damaged, or maybe it wasn't working when it was first delivered. So what we'll do, we'll get the spark plug out, we'll test that works, and then we can also test the spark plug cap as well to make sure that's working okay. So we could check the valve clearances. I did set them, maybe I didn't set them right, so we can double check that to make sure it's getting the fuel in the correct time, maybe it's exhausting the correct time, so we can double check that. We can also check the timing as well, so maybe the timing isn't correct when we put the engine back together, in which case it might be blowing when it's trying to suck, or it's just working the wrong way around. So we'll check the timing on the engine as well. Hopefully we don't need to do that, because a lot of that might mean getting the engine back out, so we'll work for the simple ones back up to the more difficult ones. Okay, so the easiest thing for us to test first is going to be the petrol. We can just dump the old petrol into a jerry can, put some fresh petrol in, which I've already been and bought, and then see if that allows the engine to start. we can just siphon the petrol out the tank into the jerry can. Now it's important the jerry can is lower than the bottom of the tank so that it flows through, and all we need to do is prime a piece of tubing and then it will actually go out itself. Might not be long enough. In hindsight, that probably wasn't the best way to empty the petrol out. In future, maybe I should have got a longer tube and gone for the siphon method. Got the doors open, we'll let the fumes escape because we did spill just a smidge, just a little bit, not a lot, just a bit. But maybe next time we'll do it differently. However, the upshot is we have an empty petrol tank, so we can put it back on, put some fresh petrol in and see if this baby starts. Okay, that should be plenty just for testing. So this is actually a brand new spark plug. I did put it in when I rebuilt the engine before, so we can actually see that it is still in good condition. There shouldn't be any problem with this at all. So what we can do, we can just check that we're getting a spark from this. Okay, we can clearly see that we are getting a spark, so there's nothing wrong with the spark plug. Now, the last thing we could check is that there's enough clearance between the head of the spark plug, so we could use a feeler gauge just to check that out. I'm going to assume that that's okay, but I could come back to that later if I feel the need. So I can get this back in and give it another go. A little trick we can try is something called Easy Start. One of the benefits with this is it's like magic juice. You spray this directly into the air intake of the engine and it will get any engine started if it's willing to start. So what we're going to do is put some Easy Start straight into the throttle body and see if we can actually get it started that way. This is a terrible idea, because if you don't open the throttle, then the little flappy bit stays closed and the engine starter doesn't actually go into the engine. Therefore it just sits on the outside, and when you try to start the engine, you get fire. Bad. So just to be sure, what we're going to do, we'll remove the throttle body and then we'll spray the starter fluid straight into the engine. At this point, it's pretty clear that we're not going to get the engine started. We can see that the starter fluid is coming out of the exhaust manifold as well as the engine, so it's getting through the system, but we're not getting anything. So where this leaves us is a problem with the timing. Every time the engine rotates, the piston has to make 2 movements to complete a cycle. The first thing it needs to do is to suck, so it moves down and that draws in air and fuel. And then it pushes back up and that compresses the air and the fuel mixture. And then the spark plug ignites, blows it back down, and the exhaust air gets drawn out. So what's happened is, on the 2 cycles, when I put the engine back together, I've got the timing wrong, so basically the spark is going at this point here, where the piston's down. So it's actually on the wrong side. So what we need to do to resolve it is get the water pump off, and I need to open up here so then I can crank it round 1 rotation and then put everything back together. And in that case then, with actually firing the spark plug at the right time. I think I should be able to do it with the engine in. I don't want to take it out again because that's a pain in the backside. The thing that's going to be fiddly is the chain tensioner just in there. That's fiddly to get in when the engine was on the bench, but it's going to be more fiddly to get back in when it's on here. So let's give that a go. Let's see if we can do it on the bike. If so, that would be brilliant, and hopefully then we can get this started. Okay, this is the chain tensioner. This pushes against the chain just to make sure it's nice and taut. So this has got to go back in, but what's difficult is when we put it back in, you have to press that little notch in to put that in, and that's what gets fiddly. So that's going to be the challenge. Hopefully I don't have to take the engine out just for that. Taken off one, two coolant lines. I've left that coolant line on. Hopefully I don't need to go into the back. So if I remember, that was in a different position. So I think if I go around, I think this is what is top dead center, but I think it's set. Here we go, moment of truth. Have we got the timing right? Is it going to start? Got power, got fuel. Okay, so we've narrowed the problem down to a lack of compression. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a compression test. So we've got a compression tester plugged into the spark plug well, and what we're going to do is just start the motor and see how much compression we get. As you can see, absolutely nothing. One little trick with doing a compression test, what you can actually do is put about 5 to 10 millilitres of engine oil into the spark plug well. What that will do is temporarily seal up the piston rings, and you should get a better reading on the compression test. Now I tried this and I still got 0 on my compression test. Someone did suggest that there's a decompression mechanism on this bike. I don't really know what that does and whether that will actually affect me getting a compression reading or not. So if you know, maybe you can let me know down in the comments. However, I thought it'd be a good idea anyway, just to try and change the piston rings, and whilst I was at it, it was not much more expensive, so I may as well change the piston as well. So that's what we're going to do now. I also want to make sure everything is absolutely perfect, so we're going to tighten the bolts up to torque to make sure everything's sealed and everything's just right. The next thing we're going to try, because of lack of compression, is the valves. I've got a feeling that the valves are probably leaking, and that's why we're getting no compression. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the head off of the bike again. I've actually managed to do that already by not taking the engine out of the bike, and get it on the desk, and then we can have a look at each valve in turn, see if any are leaking, and if they are, then we can actually lap or reseat that valve. So we can see here, I've got the head off, and what it is, we're going to have a look at these valves here. We're at top dead center, so they should be closed, and the spark plug is in, and what we're going to do is we're just going to put some WD-40 in the top there, and we're going to see where it leaks. It could either leak out of the intake side, or it could leak out of the exhaust side, and that will show us which valves need doing. If we take a close look, we can actually see they do look quite dirty, so I think they probably do need cleaning up and relapping anyway, so I'm probably going to do all of them, but it'd be interesting just to have a look and see if we do have a leak anywhere at all. Okay, so we're just going to put some WD-40 in here, it's upright, and we should see if it runs away or if it sits there. It should sit snugly. Straight away we can actually see it is running out. If we come around this side, we can see immediately it's coming out of the intake. Okay, so that's the fuel injection hole, and we can see it's coming out there. So straight away we can see that there is a problem with the intake valves, and they're the ones we probably need to bring out, clean up and reseat. Good news is, we've finally discovered why we're getting no compression, and we can finally get around to resolving it. We know now that we've got a leak in the valves. That explains everything. However, the benefit is we've been through all the different things that it could be, so all the different things you might want to check if you've got a similar problem. Fortunately, there's no more time for the video today, so we're going to come back to another video next week where we'll actually get this resolved and get it back on the bike.